Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibis? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Happy Thursday. We're almost at the weekend, guys. Before we get started, just a few things. I have to give a huge thank you to Debbie, one of our very first listeners who has always been very gracious and generous with us. She was the one that sent me the Elvis stuff about a month ago. Got another big shipment today of like original newspapers from the day Elvis died and stories after and all these rag mags. And it's just so cool to look through. There was a belt buckle and a Christmas ornament. So thank you so much, Debbie. It really it made me think of my aunt today, and it made me happy. So thank you. Music trivia of the day: Billy Joel's Piano Man. Every single character in the song that he sung about was a real person when he was working at these lounge bars. So, anyways, we are going to back up just a hair. There was something I forgot to put in on the night JJ was murdered. So, after they were finished recording that podcast, everybody went upstairs to go to sleep. And Lori went into her bedroom, and Gibbs said that's where JJ was. So she decided to sleep with David in JJ's room instead of Tylee's room. So at some point during the night, David sat up and said he had a really bad dream. And he said it was super dark. He saw earthquakes and people hurting, and he wanted to help them. And he said it was like his heart was hurting. So Gib decides she's going to go wake up Lori and ask her to give David a blessing. So she walks down the hall and knocks on the door, and there's no answer. So she jiggles the doorknob. Again, there's no answer. She tries to call and text, nothing. She also tries to call and text Chad with no response. So she goes back to bed. So I always say we don't know what Rexburg has. I'm very curious to see Chad and Lori's phone pings on the night these kids were murdered. I think anything is possible. We assume that it was Alex, but we don't know yet, y'all. We just don't know. All right, September 24th would have been Tylee's 17th birthday. It's so sad to think of what they denied her. Um, a long life, hopefully to get away from her mom and maybe get some therapy and live a very happy life. And so Lori's sister Summer told Morgan Lowe in an interview, I believe this was before the kids' bodies was found, that she had texted Tylee happy birthday. Tylee responded and said, "Thank you, Summy. Love you and happy birthday to you." When asked if she thought that was actually Tylee responding, she said she had no way to know, but she likes to think it was, and she had no reason to think otherwise. Also on the 24th, Lori calls JJ's new school up in Idaho and unenrolls him and tells them that he will be homeschooled. This is also the time she responded to the babysitter. We went through all that where she says JJ's at his grandparents' house, and the babysitter tried to get back in touch around Halloween, and no response. So we talked about that before. So Zulema texts Chad, what happens if Trump gets impeached? Does that accelerate things? And Chad says yes. If Trump is somehow removed from office, it will speed up how fast things fall apart. September 25th, Alex's phone is pinged on Chad's property from 10:05 in the morning until 10:22. He's in and around the house, but it doesn't seem he's in the areas where the kids' remains were found. He also took Charles's Jeep, which primarily was driven by Tylee, to a window tinting shop and had the front window tinted 20% and the rear window 5%. Important to remember because we know in a few days he's taking a road trip to Gilbert. Brandon is the target. September 26th, Zulema texts Chad, "Could you see if I'm being attacked or was attacked today? I've been sluggish, headache, anxious, unsettled all day. Very unusual for me." Girl, it's like every other text. It's not unusual. Tom Jones wrote a song about that. She said, "I had people come in my house today Three workers and my landlord to see if the roof was leaking. I'm wondering if one of them left something behind. Chad responds later, yes. The dark side attached a time bomb to one of the workers and it went off in your house. I've cleared you and your house. Zulema says, oh, no wonder I felt so awful. Thank you. I'm so grateful to know you. So the same day, Kay emails Detective Moffat and says that Melanie's oldest son said Lori has moved out of state. She said she's going to put the brakes on hiring an attorney in Arizona for visitation rights. She said this also has substantially heightened her concerns for JJ's well being, and this could be a ploy for whatever crazy reason she thinks of. She asks if he can verify the move is true and wants to know when he can find out. So on the 26th at 9:52 to 10:16 p.m., somebody is in a Walmart in Rexburg. 11:33 p.m., Lori seems to be in the townhomes. She makes calls at 11:31 p.m. and 12:06 a.m. on the 27th that goes into the 27th. Doesn't say who they're to. So back to the 26th. Melanie flies from Mesa, Arizona to Idaho Falls. And the same day, Alex activates a burner phone in Rexburg, and the number was connected to his Gmail account. I mean, I'm glad they were dumb criminals because it gave a lot of answers, but yeah, they weren't firing on all cylinders when you're committing a crime. So eviction proceedings are also filed against Alex in Santan Valley about the place he's saying. Zulema texts Chad that her oldest daughter's father was in a very bad motorcycle accident and barely survived. He woke up a couple of days ago, did not want to let go of her daughter's hand when she was at the hospital with him. And today he told his sister he was hallucinating and seeing dark people behind her daughter and his sister saying they were going to take him. Zulema says, I don't think that was hallucinations. I think he was really seeing evil entities. I had a bad feeling he was going to die until I was allowed to give him a blessing. Do you think they were waiting to take him? His name is Kevin. I never thought he was dark. Chad responds, Kevin is a 3 light. I feel they may have been trying to turn him into a Z, but they didn't. And Zulema says, oh no, he was terrified. He said they were whispering about him. Thank heavens they didn't. Thank you for checking on that. So the 26th and the 27th of September, the Chandler document dumps shows cell phone pings all around the BYU campus. It also shows that later Lori connected to Wi-Fi at her townhome. And then there was another ping across the street. September 28th, Alex goes to the Unified Sportsman's Gun Club. And there's a text exchange between Colby and who he thought was Tylee. So this was on the 28th of September, 2019. Tylee hasn't called her FaceTime in weeks. And Colby says, hey, Ty, happy birthday. I'm so proud of you. I know you've been through a lot. Trust God. It's all going to be okay. Somebody says, thanks, Colbs. Love you. Hey, Ty, are you okay? I'm good. I'm just tired. Call you back later. Love you. Colby says, okay, call me tonight, please. And then somebody from Tylee's phone says, at the movie, I'll call you later. Colby says, Ty, please call me after your movie. I'm worried about you. Somebody says, worried about me? What? Colby says, I just want to hear you talk. And Tylee says, okay, this week was busy. I'll call you soon. Colby says, please call me tonight if you can. So Julie Rowe told Inside Edition around this time, Chad told her his plans could not move forward until Tammy was dead. She also told Fox 13 that she talked to Chad on the phone about 3 weeks before Tammy's murder and asked if he still saw Tammy dying, and he said, yes, I do. She said he sounded frustrated and angry on the phone. I don't think I pulled this up real quick. If you're on YouTube, that is the wedding ring that Lori had on yesterday. Looks like she took a black hair tie and wrapped that baby about 4 or 5 times around her finger. I have no clue how that finger was not solid purple by the end of that hearing, but I guess when you're exalted and translated, stuff like that don't happen. All right, back to the timeline. September 29th, Melanice flies to Mesa, Arizona from Idaho Falls. And I think Alex must have driven her to the airport. His car was near the airport at 3:05 and her flight was at 5:10. So her flight was at 4:10, I'm sorry. Zulema texts Lori at 3:55. Oh, I forgot to tell you that JTL told me that my ex-husband, the one that had the motorcycle accident, is still in the hospital and the darks were trying to make him into a Z. Thank heavens I was allowed to give him a blessing and protected him, the only light I had. Poor guy. So at some point towards the end of September, the neighborhood kid JJ was playing with went to Lori's townhome and asked if JJ could play. And he was told JJ was at his grandma's. At Chad's preliminary hearing, August 2020, Melanie Gibb talked about a follow up conversation that she had with Lori not long after she left Rexburg and about JJ going to be with Kay. She said Lori told her that she met Kay at an airport and told Kay that she had breast cancer and she needed help with JJ for a period of time, and it went well. That's insane. I mean, like, why would you even lie about something like that? That's low. That's low. I mean, these people are low, y'all. September 30th, 11:31 a.m. to 1:16 p.m. Alex's cell phone was at Lori's apartment. It's redacted, but someone received a call from Chad's burner phone at 12:34. I think it's either Lori or Alex. Alex returned to his apartment from 1:17 to 4:32 p.m. And then one of his phones pings at Lori's apartment at 6:01 p.m. and conveniently stays there until October 3rd. He is getting ready to make his drive to Gilbert. So at 8:10 p.m., Charles's Jeep is seen driving southbound on I-15 near Blackfoot, Idaho, which is a city south of Rexburg. I Googled it. It's like a 45-minute hour drive away. And this is 37 hours before the attempt on Brandon. October 1st, 6:52 a.m., the Jeep that was driven by Alex in the attempted murder of Brandon is seen on I-40 near Holbrook, Arizona, with the rear tire missing. So I'm going to throw some stuff up here real quick on YouTube. This is Charles's Jeep on the far left, if you can see on YouTube. The reason that the tire had to go, and I put a demo video with my Jeep up to it's been up on YouTube. I reposted it today. You can find it on social media. You can't open that back window with the spare tires. So that has to be off. Also, on the surveillance, we see them taking the back seat, which is seen in the middle bottom picture here, because if you see, Alex would not have been able to lay flat in the back of that Jeep. And on the far right of this picture is what that Jeep would have looked like as a two-door, same year, with the seats removed. So that's kind of how it would have looked in there. So October 1st, we did that. This was 20 when they saw it on I-40 driving near Holbrook. This was 26 hours and 30 minutes prior to the attempt on Brandon's life. The distance at that point to Gilbert was 3 to 4 hours. So there's a visual of the cell towers that Alex pinged off and on of in Arizona. This is the day before Brandon is shot at. So at 9:19 a.m., Alex's burner phone calls Chad's burner phone. Alex is still near Holbrook. At 11:55 a.m., Alex's burner phone receives a call from Chad's burner phone. Alex was northeast of the Phoenix metro area. This is 21 hours before the attempt on Brandon. At 2:08 p.m., Lori rents that storage locker that eventually Nate Eaton was allowed into, and we find all of the kids' possessions, these patchwork blankets that have pictures of them at various ages and stages. That looks like happy birthday gifts to them. It says it on the top. JJ's scooter, which at CrimeCon, Larry did say that when he saw the picture of that scooter in that storage locker, he knew something was really wrong. JJ loved his scooter. And in fact, Larry told a story about how one side of JJ's shoe would wear down like super quick, day or two, because of how I guess he dragged his foot when he was, riding his scooter. Just a lot of stuff, all, bikes, everything. But for this day, um, she rents it for $53 a month. The unit is a 10 by 10 unit she is seen with a plastic tote that she brought in. At 7:31 to 7:48, Alex's burner phone communicated with Chad's burner phone. Alex was in Gilbert during this time. This is kind of important. 7:31 to 7:48. He communicates with Chad's burner phone and he's in Gilbert. Later on, we're going to have a neighbor who sees a two-door gray Jeep go past her house twice. So 7:52. Here we go. Alex's Gmail account searched for Brandon's new rental address. Now, it should be noted on September 17th, Melanie's texted Brandon asking for his new address, and he gave it to her. Other than her, Brandon said just a handful of it, like a couple of his friends knew, and that was it. So he is Googling this address 13 hours before the attempt on Brandon. The same day, Alex is served with an eviction notice for the Santan Valley rental home. And Lori's mom, Janice, tells CBS News that she spoke to JJ on this day and provided a phone bill that showed the alleged phone call. I always thought it was maybe Alex making himself sound like JJ. He was in Gilbert, but clearly, I don't know, maybe she didn't know he was in Gilbert, and maybe Lori calls and says, "Hey, I need you to call mom and act like JJ," because he was, an evil dude. But he didn't he was able to impersonate voices. I still want to hear some of these with the life insurance policy as well. Um so also on this day, in an email, investigators note that Lori was searching for wedding dresses and other information, that's in quotes, online prior to Tammy's death. And Zulema texts Chad, "Is it possible that the big earthquake will not happen? Is it possible to bring enough light and fight enough evil that the course of things could change? Or are we too ripe in iniquity? I was asked to go to the faults today, but I didn't try to create an earthquake. I sealed the earth for her to receive her." Okay, let me see if I get this right, y'all. Paradisiacal, paradisiacal glory and become celestial, which is totally different than what I've been asked to do before. So the next day, Chad responds at 10:45 a.m. "The big earthquakes will still happen all over the world. What you have been doing is completing the spiritual preparation for what will later occur physically. The sealing of the earth that you did yesterday is a key step in preparing Mother Earth for the millennium." Zulema says that makes perfect sense. "Yesterday, I worked with Jules on the earth and we opened a new portal." It was almost as if we were opening the door to the Garden of Eden. We could both see it, and she was able to use the keys you gave her. It was amazing. And Chad said, "That is wonderful." All right. So we're going to get into the attempt on Brandon. And I will tell you, I was thinking about this today because I've been kind of reading back through. Brandon is so lucky by inches that he was not murdered. He was totally intended to be victim number 4, Tammy number 5. No doubt. And it you think about this, they have 4 beautiful children together, and those kids would have been without their father. And God knows what would have happened if Melanie's took those kids around this crazy bunch. So I just think Brandon, man, talk about thank goodness for bad aim. So he leaves his house around 7:25 a.m. and takes 2 of the oldest kids to school, 1 to a day camp, and then the youngest kid goes to Melanie's. So he goes to the gym and returns home at about 9:13. In an email to investigators in August, a family member said that Brandon spent a lot of time with Charles, and when he heard Alex killed Charles, he was scared he was next. Investigators note that Alex called Lori in the time frame of the shooting, and there's also an email between investigators saying that a number he called, that Alex called, came back to a Hispanic female, maybe Zulema, and they were going to see if there were any money transfers connected to this person. At some point, Alex was transferring money. We don't know what for. I think I know what for, but that's speculation. They can confirm in a later email that this person, in fact, did receive financial transactions from Alex. So Brandon is shot at and he calls 911. I'm going to take this off for a second. I did a couple of little things. That text is really small to read. I apologize. Where the red arrow is where Brandon says the Jeep was parked facing the wrong way. So the back of the Jeep would have been what we're seeing as the front of the Jeep here. Just right ahead of that, you can see the driveway that Brandon was turning into. While on the call with 911, he said he watched the Jeep's direction of travel and followed it until he lost sight. Responding units were advised to attempt to locate the Jeep. Brandon drove back to his home and waited on officers to arrive. And again, it's just like, how does he get away? I mean, he's leaving and like pull him over. It's just insane. So once officers made contact with Brandon, he started telling the story. So I'm going to throw this other graphic up here. Don't laugh at my floating cars. I'm still learning how to do graphics. I'm just trying to add to this. Um, he said he noticed the green colored Jeep parked the wrong way just west of his home. And the rear window of that Jeep rose up and he saw a muzzle of some type of a firearm pointed at his car. It hit his window. He was still making that turn into the driveway when the shot was fired and it scared him. So he thought, I'm getting shot at, and he floored it. He got around the corner and that's when he called 911 and he sat there and drove a little further up. He saw the Jeep come around the corner and there's only one way out of that neighborhood. So Brandon tells the officer that the Jeep went on Pecos and Wrecker, which are just crossroads, I guess. He said, I was kind of nervous because I didn't want him following me. So he shows where the Jeep was parked, which you see the floating Jeep with the red right there. Um, he said he thought it had to have been two people in that Jeep. His window was perfectly aligned where Alex would have aimed at. That's why I put that red line there. So if you figure that back window is slightly up, and then you see before he makes his turn, it really does put Brandon right in that line. So they walk over to the car, and the officer noticed the side glass windows laying in the driveway. So she gets her flashlight out and is looking at the top of the driver's side door frame, and there is a bullet hole in the top of that, and she says, "I don't think that's a BB gun." And the hole was about the size of a dime, and the rubber door gasket was tattered and torn. So she asked him, "You just moved in?" She asked if the home was vacant at the time. They go through kind of your basic stuff. Um, did the owner say anything about who was renting before? Brandon's like, no. She wants to know if he has any enemies. And Brandon says he's going through a divorce. And he says there's some stuff with Melanie's aunt. She killed her husband, but I hope that has nothing to do with this. He said the reason for their divorce is because Melanie's thought he was gay and some issues he had with her family and Charles's murder. She asked about issues at work, and Brandon just says the only people I could even think of that would be that group. And the officer says the family of your ex-wife, and Brandon says, yeah. So the officer's looking inside his car. It's really nice, a Tesla with like the Back to the Future doors that I want so bad, y'all. I want like a Back to the Future car, legit. Um, the officer's looking in where the bullet struck and says it's kind of weird. So she says she's going to get her camera to take photos. And she asked, did it look like a rifle? And Brandon said, yeah, like a rifle or something. There was a muzzle on it. It just lifted up the back gate and shot. So She asked, "Where did his window land?" And Brandon explained it actually stayed in the door, but when he parks, it automatically opens the door, and that's when it fell off. So they go through again where he was, and Brandon again said he heard a loud boom and his window shattered. So another officer arrives. He's looking at the bullet hole he thinks is lodged in there. And in the background, you can barely make it out, but, the male officer asked Brandon, "Who's ticked off at you?" And he says something about just killed her husband. They claim self-defense. He died at their house. So the female officer asked the color of the Jeep, and Brandon says, "Pukey green." And he said, "Let me check my Nest camera." So the other officer brings a phone over to her, and he says, "Camo green." And the officer said, "There goes a gray." And we know Charles's Jeep was actually gray. If you look here far left, that's Charles's. And then she kind of loses her train of thought. So I'm very curious if Alex made another pass to see what was going on. Um, so let's see where I was. The officer says he's going to walk up and down the streets and see if there's any cameras. This is what I was referring to in the Gilbert documents when it came to Charles's murder. There's nothing in those documents unless I totally overlooked it that they did any canvassing. Did you see something? Did you hear something? Do you have a camera? So a female officer asked Brandon how long until he called 911, and he said as soon as it happened. Um, she also asked when he was parked and passed the Jeep passed, "Could you see who it was?" And Brandon said he was trying to keep enough distance in case he was shot at again. He said the gun had a silencer or something on it, and that's why he didn't think it was a gun because it was so loud when it was fired. Now at this point, it's all hitting Brandon, like, everything's starting to be like, "Whoa, this just happened." He didn't realize it was actually a rifle with real bullets until that officer found the hole in the frame of that door, and you kinda can hear and see Brandon really just, like, reality is sinking in, and he is internally freaking out. Bless it. The male officer asked what he does for a living. Brandon says he owns a couple of business. He's asked, "Is it a two-door, four-door Jeep?" Brandon says two. Um, she asked when the Jeep sped off, how far did he go? And Brandon says there's a pool down the road he used to own. And Brandon said he actually used to own a house on the other street. So he pulled to the other side of the pool area. The male officer asked Brandon, "Did you only hear one shot?" And Brandon confirms it was only one shot he heard. And he says again, "I'm pretty sure it's stuck in the frame." Brandon says that he thinks that Alex was as surprised as he was because they thought they were going to hit him. And the cop explains more officers are on the way to walk the streets to see if they can find any shell casings. And Brandon said he felt like this was very professional, not the cops coming, but just the window coming up the muzzle, the way he was pointed. So Brandon walks with the cop out in the street to show where the Jeep was and where he was in his car. And he thought it was really weird when he saw that window come up. He does say, "I do have cameras, by the way, so we may be able to see something." He said for a minute he thought it might be a paintball gun or something. And until the officer showed him the hole, he thought it was a paintball. Inside the car, they did not find an exit hole. And the officer asked about the window glass being on the ground. And Brandon also said he did not recognize the driver, but he saw Texas license plates. We know that Charles registered that car in Texas. They collected bullet fragments from the door frame, but the majority of the bullet was never located, and they think it fell out when Brandon was driving away after he got shot at. Glass was found in the street where the bullet hit the door frame, and there was glass in the driver's compartment. So essentially, the trajectory of the hole matched Brandon's version of events as far as where the Jeep was parked in relation to his route down the road to the house. So investigators also located a tire track imprinted in dust and debris at the spot where the Jeep was parked. And it seemed to be a stock tire. You can tell on Charles's Jeep that is definitely a stock tire, which is curious. Maybe they're going to wait till winter, but a Jeep in Idaho in the winter, you would want to have some snow tires on that baby. Um, so they start talking to neighbors. One neighbor was in her kitchen, heard a loud bang in the front of her house, thought something had hit her window. So she looked outside, and to her, she said she saw a very dark blue Jeep Wrangler parked across the street facing the opposite way, then saw it speed down the road. Again, when we were talking about Brandon Googling that address at like 7:40 something or whatever I said 5 minutes ago, a witness saw a small grayish colored Jeep the night before between 8 and 8:30 drive by her house twice. Another neighbor said her and her husband saw the Jeep driving down the street around 7:45 to 8 a.m. Another neighbor saw the Jeep parked nose to nose with the white van that was right there around 8:40. The Jeep was running idle, but he couldn't see inside due to the tinted windows. There was a neighbor whose camera caught the rear end of the Jeep going down the road at 9:13 a.m. And one witness also noticed that Jeep parked nose to nose with the white van. He was walking his dogs, and he said he looked in and the driver's seat was pushed all the way forward to the steering wheel, but he didn't see anybody inside. So ultimately, cellular data and witnesses have Alex parked and waiting on Brandon for nearly 2 hours. So Brandon on scene talked to Gilbert PD. He explains to them that Melanice began spending more time with her Aunt Lori, and that Lori was part of, quote, something different with regard to some religious thing. And that he let them know that Lori had convinced Melanice that Brandon was a homosexual. And he said he tried to reconcile and prove that what Lori said was a lie, but mediation was unsuccessful, and Melanice was adamant she wanted a divorce. So Brandon and Melanice initiated divorce proceedings in early of July 2019. He also went on to explain the situation with Lori and Charles, that they were in the process of a divorce. Brandon did not know Lori well, but heard she exhibited suspicious behavior and was warned by Charles. And he was warned by Charles that Lori was trying to manipulate Melanice. So he also said the story about Alex murdering Charles and Chandler. He said he didn't know the details about the homicide, but it was suspicious and he thought it was orchestrated by Lori. He was worried this attempt was connected to them. As we know now, it was. He also told them that Lori used to live in Texas, and he was confident the license plate on that Jeep was from Texas. And the officer asked about a financial motive for the shooting, and Brandon said that Melanice was still on his life insurance policy and would receive, and it's redacted, I'm sure it was a fairly large amount. Brandon had a good job and seemed smart. If he were to die, also Brandon had already paid her a certain amount of money. I think it was in 300,000. It was a lot. So Lori and Chad are seen on the storage unit surveillance at 2:25 p.m. The timestamp was actually 1:25, but the owner said those clocks were off by an hour. So 2 minutes later at 2:27, Lori and Chad are seen getting out of the car. At 2:29, Chad pulls out the tire from the back of the car and rolls it into the storage unit. This is the back spare tire of that Jeep. Um, let's see here. Um, they're also seen putting that rear seat into the Jeep. I'm going to throw that graphic up. And I know at the beginning of this case, before we really knew a lot, we got these videos early on, and a lot of people thought that that was something more with that back seat. It kind of like a leg, and that was like all the chatter for a while, but it is the back of that Jeep, and we showed, why he needed that Jeep removed. And then, yeah, I think I said he gave her a little booty pat. By the way, his wife was still alive and well at this point. Excuse me. So they leave at 2:32 and they're there for 7 minutes total. As they're leaving the booty pat, um, I will put in the YouTube community that link to the video I did with my Jeep about the spare tire because it kind of makes sense. It helps make sense of how it had to work. So later that night, Lori and Alex are searching for the shooting in Gilbert online. There were cookies from various local news sites that were deleted from their devices that were for abc15.com and arizonacentral.com. Lori's Gmail account searched the internet for man shot in Gilbert, Arizona, man shot in Gilbert, Arizona, 10/2/2019, and ABC News Brandon Boudreaux. It also should be noted that on this day, Lori orders her wedding ring on Amazon. Tammy would not be murdered for another 17 days. She used Charles's Amazon account and ordered a sterling silver Southwestern style malachite gemstone ring or band, size 4, for $35.99. And a little random fact, when Melanie's dad asked her about the attempt on Brandon, Melanie's response was, "How do you know he didn't shoot his own vehicle? And how do you know one of his work buddies did not shoot at him?" So Melanie's and also Alex's friend Mary Tracy were on Dateline in May of 2020. And Keith Morrison asked Melanie's, "Did you ask Alex if he tried to shoot Brandon?" She said, "I did." And she laughs and she flat out, and she says, flat out just said, "Alex, like, you know what happened with that?" And he made some jokes about it. And then we both talked about how insane that would be for him across the street with a rifle in broad daylight in a recognizable car. Keith Morrison said, "Did he ever actually deny it?" She says, yeah, while shaking her head no. He denied it many times. So Keith Morrison says his friend Mary told us she hoped Alex didn't do it, but she had a growing suspicion and not just about Alex. So Keith Morrison asks Alex's friend Mary, who he was close to, it seemed, "Can you bring yourself to believe that your friend Alex committed these deeds of his own free will?" And Mary said, "No, no, that's not even a question. That's not who he was." Keith said, "So if he did all these things, why would he do if he did these things, why would he do them?" And Mary said he would do them as a protector and defender of his sister and her children. So October 3rd, the Jeep returns to the Idaho Falls area at some point, and at 2:11 p.m., Lori and Alex go to that storage unit. I put the graphic up on YouTube, and they stay for 4 minutes. Alex gets the tire and the rear seat from the unit and puts it in the car. So we're going to finish this little bit here about Tammy Daybell's family. They told East Idaho News that Chad was working outside and came in to tell Tammy that, guess what? Grandma Cooper has come to me and said, you need to go see your parents in Springville, Utah. And actually, Tammy had told Chad earlier in that week that she would like to go visit, but she was a little hesitant to go. Her family said Tammy would always travel with Chad and the kids. And, it was a little odd that, that that she came alone. That next morning, she did get up and drive to visit her family. So Zulema texts Alex asking how he's doing, and he responds, "Wow, nice. Just waiting and laughing and singing. Are you coming up soon?" Lori also searches for wedding dresses online. So we're going to stop there. Tomorrow, we're going to get into Melanie's interview with law enforcement about the attempt on Brandon. She shows up with her youngest child. And the biggest thing to me that makes no sense is she never asks what they're wanting to talk to her about. I mean, if a cop came to me and said, "Hey, I need you to come down to the station," I'm going to be like, "For what?" So I always thought that was a little odd. All right, guys. Hope you have a good evening. Sorry it's a little late, but we will see you tomorrow. We'll pick up on this. I'm also going to do a little update on Caitlin Armstrong. There's been some arguments that she wasn't read her Miranda rights and yada, yada, yada. So we're going to get into that, maybe just a little 10-minute episode tomorrow. I'm doubling up because I missed the other day because I want to get 5 in a week. That's my goal. All right, you guys have a really good sleep. We will see you soon.